presenting with trialdirector. There's a PowerPoint I'm going to go through with you. Preparing video clips using what is called the segment editor. There's a PowerPoint for this as well. I'll go through with you. And then something called carousels, which I guess that term is used because of the old slideshow 35mm projectors that had like a round sort of they called it a carousel, and they put the slides in there and you could go this way or that way, backwards or forwards, and that's kind of what the carousels are, and we'll show you how useful they are and the do's and the don'ts of using them as well when you're making your presentation. So those are the topics that we're going to be covering in this session. There were some questions last week that we didn't get to answer too well during the little time we had. So I did put some of the answers down in the Q&A section for you. You'll notice that one question was data from other applications. So if you, after the session, you were the one that asked the question, come here and you'll see that the answer is yes, you can get data in about the documents that you have entered about those documents and other applications. Depending on the applications, there's a procedure that you would follow. And I put a couple links in here. There's a database application called Law, and this is a link to their PDF file that tells you how to convert the document information over into a trialdirector imported database that you can bring directly into trialdirector. And these are called load files. And they come in different formats. For example, let's say you had a trialdirector case and you wanted to import all that data from a different trialdirector case. Then when you create the load file in trialdirector, it will generate what is called an OLL file. And that's a batch file also that is generated by other programs for trialdirector. Summation has a DII file, iPro, LPT. There are TXT and DBF files from Doculex, and Opticon has a load file called LOG. So depending on which database you're using, you need to consult the manuals for your particular applications where you've entered data to how to export that data with the documents for trialdirector. And then trialdirector will allow you to load those files in using the load file that is provided. There's another link down here from iPro about this as well for you to look at. So that was one of the questions, and these are a bunch of other questions that have been asked of those of you who are involved in this particular training and other training sessions. So look these over, and any questions we didn't get to answer during the session last time will be in here as well. So let's go back to our session for today. This is a presentation mode and video clips. So last session, I went over the basic interface, an overview of the interface that's provided to you by trialdirector. And I did talk just briefly about the presentation mode options. So I wanted to bring that up and go into this a little bit more detail today. So let's go ahead and start this out. In your interface, over here on the left, there is your case database, your case explorer, it's called, and you'd have all your document folders and so on, and your work folders down below there. But what I did is just screen snipped a little bit of the top here to show you when you want to go into presentation mode for trialdirector. To present your information, you're going to go up here and click on this icon. And then you're going to see this big black screen showing up. This little tip here is that in your presentation in court, you might want to use what is called a dual screen approach, where this screen is always up on your projector, and the other screen that you saw, this one, if I go backwards here, This screen here is showing on your laptop screen, but down in this section here, you would see the presentation mode as well. Yeah, you can arrange Trial Director, and we'll deal with this in the future, so that when you click on this button, by default, what will happen is this screen will shoot up on the projector or the big flat panel that the jury's looking at, but your screen will remain the case database as well as a smaller version of this. So dual screens are sometimes useful. I have myself in my practice using it, stayed away from dual screens for a couple of reasons, but a lot of people do like them, and so I'll show you the way to go about setting that up in a future session. But right now I want to deal with this basic presentation interface that is provided to you by Trial Director. So down here in the lower corner of our screen is the toolbar, where we have a little folder here. I mean, a little icon here that if you click there, you're going to see a bunch of your folders, your work folders, with your documents in them that you've decided to present in court. And then over in this little slot, you'll see the actual document that will show up on the screen up here if you click this button. That's the presentation button. So what we can do, I'll zoom in a little bit of this admitted 1-2706 is the actual folder in which this document is showing up. There are a number of documents or images that are in this particular folder. This is the one that's set. If I click here, it will present it up above like this. So because this is the document that was highlighted here in this panel, when I click this button, it shoots that document up before the jury in the presentation screen. There are multiple annotation tools available. So if you hover your cursor of your mouse over any of these icons down below, a little pop-out help will tell you what that particular tool will do for you. And so I hover over this icon, it tells me that it's going to draw an arrow for me. And so I click there, and then I go up and I just hold my left mouse button and drag, and the tip of the arrow will be wherever I've dragged from and pointing at a piece of the text. So that's one of the annotation tools. And then another one, if I hover over this one, that's a highlight tool. So if I move my left mouse button up and drag across that right in front of the jury, they're going to see me highlighting a particular piece of text upon which I want them to focus in the presentation that I'm making. And then this is a number stamp tool. And what this does is if I am presenting and I want them to focus on my first point, which is here, I can click on this tool and then click my left mouse in here. It'll pull number 1. I'll say now my point number 1 that I'm talking about is in this area here. And then when I move on to my second point, I would click on this area and it will stamp a number 2, automatically increments for me. I don't have to go back down to the stamp tool. And then after I'm talking about this particular paragraph, I would click here. It would put now my point number 3 about this document, and you click there and automatically increments. And if I was going to come down here and talk about this particular paragraph, you notice number 4 is always already showing up there, and I click and 4 will automatically be stamped right there by that paragraph. When you want to clear this whole presentation area, so you don't want this document, you don't want these annotations anymore, you hit the escape key on your keyboard, which I'll go ahead and hit escape, and it clears off the screen. Now also, you can customize that toolbar down below. There are all kinds of things you can add to it that will show up when you go to your customization on the toolbar. So you can take a look at this PowerPoint later to see all of these different options that you have. So the way you pick a particular item out of a workbook is you click on this icon here next to where the workbook's name show up. And then this pop-up menu will come up on the screen. So if you didn't want anything in the admitted 0329 2000 whatever folder, you could click on this icon and then, okay, say maybe you wanted to present something out of the folder that has like trial exhibits or snapshots or witnesses, and you click on whichever folder you want to show up in this area, and then the first item in that folder will show up over here. And if I would click here, it would shove this document up into the presentation area. But let's say I didn't want that particular item out of this folder. I wanted a different item. Then I would click on this little up arrow or down arrow, and it will show me all the items that are listed that are located in this trial exhibit folder. It doesn't really show me all, it shows me this many, and there's a little elevator bar here. I could hold my left mouse button down and drag that down to see some more. But once I see the item I want, I click on that item, and then its name will show up in that particular folder, and then I could just click that up arrow and it would show up above. Now, another way of bringing up your exhibits, instead of using these two tools here, the workbook and then the item tool, is if you know what the item ID is, you can then just go ahead and type it. So let's say I knew the item ID for DME00050. Well, then what I could do is get on my keyboard and just type that number in, hit the enter key, and bingo, it will show up above. Now, what I've done is keep a trial notebook in which I've got printouts of all my exhibits and items or thumbnails if it's a video, and then instead of sometimes using these, I have like a script that I've gotten next to my laptop that I'm going to follow with just all those numbers on it, and I just type those in, hit enter, and bingo, the item shows up in the presentation mode. Now there's some call-out options. I'm going to cover some more of these tools here that are available too. These call-outs are where you want to kind of zoom in on a section of the document and have it kind of come forward on top of the document. And there are various shapes. This one has got like ragged edges on it. But when you click on the call-out button here, then these options will show up, and then you can pick which of the call-outs that you want to try out. And you just experiment with these. This is the tear out option, you can see. So what it did is it gave me that as a tool. I used my left mouse button to encircle, or encompass rather, this area of the document. And when I did, it brought it forward and put a little ragged edge around like a tear out of that document to present to the jury. Then you also can add zones to present more than one item at a time. So sometimes you want to compare two items on the screen at the same time. And so over here in the far right of the toolbar is a little zone icon. And the one I use most of the time is one that has two separate little panels, one here on the left, one on the right. And so if I click the one on the left and then pick the type in the number, it'll shoot the document up on the left hand side of the screen. And then for the next one, I click on the panel on the right of this little icon, and then that'll move. Then when I type in the number of the document, it'll show up on the right hand side of the screen. So here's an example of two different pieces of evidence showing up in the two different zones, one over here on the left and one here on the right. As I use the split sort of panel presentation option. Then also, when you have a number of items arranged on the screen that you're showing the jury, you might want to capture that whole screen, because you might say, you know, I think maybe I'm going to show this again, and I don't want to have to go through the operation of clicking on these two panels and shooting one up here and shooting one up there. So then what you can do is do a snapshot of the screen with the exhibits. And there's a little camera icon that's on your toolbar down here. So when you click on that camera icon, it will go ahead and let you take a snapshot. And then also later, when you want to present, this is a snapshot camera here, and this one here is when you want to access the snapshots you have. So you click there, and then all the snapshots that you've taken, you click on this little icon and you get a list of them, and you can pick whichever snapshot of the screen that you had taken earlier. It'll show up in the presentation area for you. And then you can set preferences for this whole presentation area using the preferences icon. Now, how I got this up here is I clicked on this little corner icon here. It brought up this pop-up menu, and then I will click on preferences. And in the preferences, one of the options that some people like is to hide the toolbar while you're in presentation mode. So some people, like I mentioned, that have a presentation script written down next to them, next to their laptop, they know what they're going to present. Maybe they're not going to do a lot of annotations. They're just wanting to present one item after another. And so they don't really want that toolbar to show up. So then you can hide it with the check mark here, and it will not show up unless you wanted to. And then if you needed them, you could move your mouse down to the bottom of the screen, and it will pop up kind of like in Windows or other applications that have like a pop-up toolbar. So you can set your preferences here in that case. And there are a number of other preferences here as well that you can select. And I mentioned earlier the display on the screen, the primary monitor, which is your laptop. But if you want the presentation mode to show up on a secondary monitor or a projector, you're going to want to check this option so that on your screen, you're going to see your Case Explorer. You're going to see a little smaller version of the presentation option. And then the jury will just see what's on the secondary screen, the presentation option. But this is where in your preferences, you would set that up as well. There are a number of other preferences that you can play around with in the manual under zones and images, multimedia, appearance, and tool preferences. So which tools show up on the, you can come in here and set these all according to the way you feel the interface should be for you when you go into court. And so when you click on the trial director icon to hide or reveal the toolbar, so you click there and it will give you a chance to hide it or reveal it. So here it is, where you can, get out of the actual presentation mode. So when you're done presenting and you don't want anything to be showing up before the jury anymore, then you can turn off your projector, of course, and put it in sleep mode, or you can click exit and come out. So those are some of the basic things about the presenting options with Trial Director. And I'm going to actually go in there and show it to you before the end of our session here, but I want to get into another PowerPoint about using carousels, because a carousel, as I said, enables you to present a group of items in a revolving display so that you don't have to call them up one at a time. You can click backwards and forwards through the revolving display. You can pause as needed on each item, and it is not well suited for transcripts or pieces of transcripts or image documents like TIFF files or PDF files that are multi-page. It's not really for that. It's not designed for that. Carousels really provide you a really good way of presenting photos, a sequence of photos like JPEGs, BMPs, PNGs, works really good for that purpose. And also non-synchronized video clips. So I'm not talking about a transcript that's synchronized with a video, it's not good for that. But if you have like a bunch of MPEGs, MPEG-2s, WMVs, AVI files that you want to show in sequence, a number of maybe surveillance videos, and you want to show them in a sequence, you can put them in a carousel and show them one after another instead of calling them up individually. So I'll show you how that works. And then, so the first thing you need to do is create a workbook that's called a carousel. Or you can change, if you already have some videos down in a, or JPEGs in a workbook, you can convert it to be a carousel. And I'll show you how to go about that as well. But again, a couple notes: do not include Microsoft Office files in a carousel, like PowerPoints, Word documents, Excel spreadsheets. They will appear in a carousel, but they are not loaded when you present it. So that's kind of like a little gotcha in the software. So just don't put any Office product information in a carousel. And then I wouldn't put any TIFF files or PDFs in there or DVD clips. These would be synchronized video clips, transcription clips. I wouldn't put any of those in a carousel as well. The loading performance is terrible and navigation isn't good. That's not really, carousels are not designed for that type of file. So on the workbook menu, I'll get to that in a moment, you point to the create new workbooks and then you click carousel. That will come up. Or in the Workbook Explorer, you can right button click workbooks and then point to create a new workbook and click on the carousel option. And you can use this method to create the new carousel workbook as a sub workbook under an existing workbook as well. And then what you would do is drag and drop all the exhibits from the Case Explorer up above that you want to include in the carousel and just drag them down into that carousel workbook at the bottom of the screen. And you want to be sure the items are listed in the order that they should appear when you present the carousel. And you can manually just move those around with your left mouse button so they're in the right order in the carousel. If you have an existing workbook that you want to convert to a carousel, then go to Workbook menu, select Workbook. You go to select Workbook color or type, and one of the options will be Carousel. Or you can just right button click on the existing workbook and point to select Workbook color or type, and the type is Carousel, and you would pick that. And then there's a little carousel icon that will appear next to the workbook to remind you that that is the kind of workbook that you got. And then to present the carousel in presentation preview or presentation mode, you use the navigation tools to select and load the carousel. And you use the arrows on the control bar to go forward or reverse. We'll show you those. And then you can toggle between carousel controls and the controls for the active exhibit. You can pause the video, for example, that's in the carousel using the control for that. And you can click the tab on the right side of the control bar if you want to do it that way. And then also, if you have a touch screen that you're using, you can do what's called flinging the exhibits. So you can put your finger on the screen and flip left or right through the carousel, or you can do it by clicking on the exhibit and drag the exhibit over left or right. First thing to do is ensure the default tool is selected, which is an arrow like the one you see I have here. If another tool is selected, you have to press the Alt while double clicking the left mouse button to clear the tool selection. Then you click and hold on the exhibit momentarily, and when you hold on it, then a cursor changes into the icon like this little hand, and then you can drag to the left or drag to the right to move through the carousel. So that's the how-to on that, and we're going to get back to, I'll bring up Trial Director in a minute and demonstrate that for you. Next, I wanted to go into preparing video clips in Trial Director from the transcripts, the video synchronized transcripts that you might have in your case. So when you go into a Trial Director interface, in order to work with the transcripts, you have to click on the tab at the bottom called Transcript Manager, which I've done. And so now I'm looking at a transcript over here, Michael Polly. I've clicked on that, and then we're ready to start working with this transcript to make some clips. And so a video clip clip, just to let you know, consists of one or more segments taken from a digital video transcript. By combining several segments into a single clip, you can play relevant testimony without interruptions, such as long pauses, or maybe between the deponent's words and the questions you've asked, there are some objections that have been made, or maybe there's some irrelevant testimony. So you can highlight and then copy into a clip a certain part of the testimony. Then you can move down in the clip, and in the transcript, highlight another section, and then you can add that particular portion to the compilation of the clips that you're making. And so that's a really unique thing about using the clip maker. So the first thing before we do make a clip is we need to kind of search through the transcript to find the relevant pieces of information we're looking for. And so above the transcript, to the right of the segment editor, which we'll get back to, is the search option. And you click on that, and then you type in the search term that you're going to be looking for, and you can tell it to search in just the current transcript only, which is what we're doing here. And so you type in a search term. We'll type in damages, and then once you've got your word typed in there, you click on find, and it will come up with the compilation of all those it's found, with damages in the portions of the transcript with the word damages. You notice it says 2 matches were found, and so you can expand that search to see what they are by clicking there, and it shows you then where these 2 pieces of the transcript are that have the word damages in them. Page 34, line 13, and it shows you the line, you've got a reasonable claim for punitive damages. Or page 34, colon 15, line 15, damages as well as ask for some really large numbers. So those are the brief paraphrases out of those 2 portions of the transcript where you do have the word damages. So now we can drill down in the synopsis for more context, or we can jump directly to the transcript where the search term was located. By clicking on plus, we can see more of it. We can go right to the portion of the transcript where that word appears. So we click there, and then when you found the search term in the transcript, then you're going to highlight the portions of the transcript you want for a clip. So that's what we're about to do now, is highlight portions here of the, so here's where damages occurs, but we need more than just this little piece. We want to highlight some more of that question and answer section. So what we've done is the word damages is showing up here in line 15, but we notice that really the sequence that we want starts here on 23 with this question, and did you believe that the result in this case would have substantial bearing on whether you could get, mouse button down, and then drag it down and drop to where you want to terminate the this portion of your clip, and then let go. And then what you'll do is you'll right-click to display the shortcut menu with regard to making clips. So I'm going to right button click here and bring up this menu. And what we're wanting to do at this point, there are a bunch of other options here, but we could copy it, we could add selected text to another clip that we've just done. Remember, I told you can concatenate them to another clip, or we can just create a new clip, which is what we're going to do here. And so we click there, and then after that, we can say whether or not we wanted to add it to the existing clip. The new clip appears in the Transcript Explorer tree over here on the left. So you can see here's the new clip over here showing up in this. This is the Transcript Explorer tree that we see in this side. So we click there. And now we click on the Segment Editor tab to display the editing tools for this segment. And I'll explain why we want to do this in just a moment. When you click there, the segment that you've clipped out is showing up here. And then when we click on it, to bring up the beginning and ending of this clip in the start segment of audio and the end segment of audio. So we click there, and now we see the segment editor. Now let me explain a little bit about this to you. When you bring up a transcript that has synchronization between the text and the audio, there are times when the beginning of the audio is not exactly where the words start. And or it may be that even though you only highlighted certain words, maybe the audio is going to go overboard and kind of get into the next part of the transcript. And so you need to adjust. Sometimes you need, and always really, you should use the segment editor to move these little yellow lines back and forth until you have the adjusted just properly. So this visual display of the audio waveform is where the conversation starts and ends. So here's your starting part, here's your ending part of the audio segment. And so you're going to do is zoom in, so you can zoom in on that waveform to see exactly whether you got a problem or not. So you click on the plus sign here as we're zooming on the start segment. And we click on that to get in closer. And then once you get in close enough, you can determine whether this line needs to be moved to the left or to the right. And so in order to actually hear that, we would play the segment to determine if you need to adjust the beginning and or the ending of the segment. So you can pick play to hear the whole segment, or you can click on this play button here just to hear the beginning to make sure it actually starts where you want it to start and doesn't have extra words in it or minus a word or two. So that helps you kind of see whether you need to make an adjustment by clicking there. This will play the whole segment from beginning to end, and then this will play the beginning of it. And then you click and drag the yellow endpoint indicators to adjust the start and end points of the clip. So if you notice that this was over too far and it was incorporating some audio here that you don't want, you just drag it over and put it where it will be between that word and the next word in the transcript clip. And then so you can decrease the amount of silence. If there's just a lot of silence in there, you might not want a lot of silence to start the clip where there was a nobody talking. You could drag it also over to the right to end, get rid of some of the silence. Silence is indicated by a flat line in the audio area. And then to decrease the amount, you just drag that, and then you can drag it up real close to the first word like we've done here. Once you've got that done, this icon here is a save. So you're going to save the beginning point of that audio clip. When you click there, it saves the changes to the beginning of the clip. And then you want to repeat that for the end segment of the audio. So now we're over at the end segment, and we can drag this line to where we want it to be. You know, you'd play it, listen to it, decide where you want to drag this to adjust it, and then you would you know, you zoomed in here a little bit so you can see where that line should be, and then drag it over maybe closer to the text or to the audio, and then you click save to change the end point of the segment in this case. And then once you've got that adjusted where you think it should be, you pick play to listen to the whole transcript piece that you've clipped out and make sure it sounds just like you thought it should and is synchronized with the text quite well. And that's what that is for, reviewing the entire clip. When you've finished editing, you click the update segment or save button, and that updates the clip. So here's another save option. So even though you save the beginning and the end points, you still need to go over here once you've listened to the clip and pick save to update that clip's beginning and end point area and save it back out. Then you please select how you would like to update the clip from the options below. You can update the clip by clicking OK. So once you click that Save button, update selected segment within the clip, or you can add a range to a clip as a new segment without the text. You normally don't want that. Very rare cases. This is the one you want to pick almost all the time, and click OK. So those are the PowerPoints I wanted to show you. Now I'm going to go into trialdirector itself, and I'm going to bring up the software program. And the first thing I wanted to do is show you something about the carousel. Now I've created a carousel in my workbooks down below, this photo carousel, and I can click on the plus sign in front of it, and I can see that I've got 3 photos in here, or graphics. They're not multi-page documents. They're not native files. They're images that I want to show when I go to presentation mode. So now that I've got that carousel created, I can show it in presentation mode. But let's review how to go ahead and create one of these. So I can go up to the top of the workbook area, and I can right button click there and create a new workbook. When I pick create a new workbook, one of the options is carousel. Let's pick that one. And then I can give it a name, and we'll say more photos, and hit enter. So now I can drag some photos down into that particular carousel, and I can click on these photos I've got in my documents up here, and then I can drag them down into that folder. I'll put another couple in there, and click on this one and drag that one in there. So now I've got 2 different carousels there in my workbooks. So you don't create a carousel up here. You create it down in your workbook folder, a Workbook Explorer, and then you drag your items down into it. So now let's go to our presentation mode. Here it is up here. And when you click on presentation mode the first time, it takes a little longer to load because it has to bring up this application. Once it's up, you'll see over here on the left, remember in the presentation tutorial we had, this is where the folders show up, the workbook folders. If we click on this arrow, it shows us all of our workbooks, and we can kind of cursor down through these. And then here's that more photo carousel we picked, and we choose it. And then we have a carousel icon showing up over here. And in order to use the carousel, what we're going to do is shove it up on the screen. So we have the carousel ready to go, and we can click Launch the Current File, and then click here, and it brings up our first item. You can see the other one's hiding behind it. And now we can click the forward next navigation file in our carousel, and it will go ahead and bring its name up, and we can shove it up above. So there's our next one. And then we can navigate to the next photo in our carousel and bring it up. And then we can go backwards in the carousel by clicking here and then send it up on the screen. So that's the way the carousel option works for us. Now, I want to show you a little bit more in presentation mode while we're here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up a different folder here instead of the carousel. And let's do a different carousel here. I think we'll pick second session here. And we have a PowerPoint presentation that's first in that folder. We want to see other presentations in there. We have a PDF carousel. We have a PowerPoint preparing video clips, which is what we're going to be showing you next year as we use the trialdirector program. And so we click on that option, and then we can click the launch that file, and it will put my PowerPoint slideshow up on the screen. And then I can use my my cursor to go ahead and go through the PowerPoint, just clicking on it like I would if I was using PowerPoint, and click through the slides. And then I can use my up arrow key on the keyboard, to go backwards through the slides. So that's how you could launch a separate file. Now, we know we wouldn't put this this PowerPoint in a carousel. We put it in a work folder. So I can come over here now and pick a different folder. We can go down to full text letters and shove that letter up on the screen. And then, since this is a multi-paged letter or document, I can use my down arrow key, which I'm doing now, to kind of go down through the pages of that particular document. And then use the up arrow key, or I can use my scroller mouse, the little wheel on my mouse, to zoom back up on that document. And so now that I have an area where I want to work with, I can bring up some of my tools that I have on my toolbar, my navigation toolbar here. I can bring those up. And one of the options is this projection zoom. So I can pick that option, and I can come up and highlight an area and bring it up. This is one of those call outs that has like a little sort of like a faint pattern in the back showing you where it came from on the particular document. And I can move over to a corner and drag it down to show more of the document, or move it up to show less. So that's a kind of unique feature there of these call outs. And then I could pick an arrow, and even on the call out, I could draw an arrow to point at a word, or I could pick the highlight tool, and I could highlight something in the call out, like so. And so once you have done that, and you wanted to undo something, you can click the undo icon, and it will undo the various things you've done as you presented on that document. So you can go back through them all. And then if you wanted to completely make this disappear, you can hit the escape key on the keyboard, which I'm doing now, to take it out so you don't see it at all. And so now let's go back over to our folder option and take a look at what else we've got. We have some trial exhibit folder, and we can click on this icon to bring up the various trial exhibits that we've prepared, and pick one, and then shove it up on the presentation screen. And then we can practice with some more of the tools that we have down below. We have a circle tool, drag around there, and we can use the line tool to underline something. And we have our call out tool, that projection zoom, that we can use to bring up a piece of the document. The escape key just makes everything disappear. Now we have another kind of workbook here I want to take a look at, and that would be our multimedia demo. And here we can see we've got a number of multimedia options. One of them is a transcript, piece of a transcript, one of those clips. We can throw that up on the screen, and then go ahead and play that.
Well, with respect to your comment about the subpoena, I did call you prior to May 20, did I not? And told you that I would like to schedule the deposition and was willing to do so at your convenience. Yeah, you did. And then I'd be happy to do so without the necessity of serving a subpoena on you if that was agreeable.
So you can pause that transcript if you would like to, so that you can start talking about what was said, and then restart it. And this tool is where you see the three little dots there. You click there, and then this multimedia kind of control comes up, and you can move it back and forth in your transcript there. So that's another piece of the presentation option. Now, another thing that we had talked about are the different segments. So you can put more than one document up at a time. So now I'm going to go over here in the right corner and pick this first panel. So that's highlighted. And then when I shove this document up on the screen, the transcript shows up here on the left. And then I could come back over here and pick the right panel and go back into my folders, and maybe I go down to, I could put just about any of these, full claim, and then I could bring up a document over here on the right. So here could be the document that's being discussed, and then I could come back over here and play. So anyway, there's how you would use the split screen, and there are actually about 9 different places you can hover over this and pick all these different locations. But really, the most effective is just to do a split screen like that and show 2 documents at the same time. And again, I mentioned to you over here, you have the option of going into preferences. And then your preferences here are your secondary monitor could be clicked on, and then you could set your projector to be the display that this whole screen shows up on. And on your screen, you'd see a smaller version of it, but you'd also see all your Case Explorer options and things of that kind. So in your manual, that PDF file, there's a lot here that under General, you can do a log presentation event, and when you do that, then the whole presentation you've done in court is going to do a script file that you could rerun it. So after the trial is over, you could come back and run the script file and see what you actually did in court, which is a pretty neat thing to review what you've done. The staging option has a number of items here, selecting a theme, reflection intensity if you want to have a little reflection, your spotlight levels, all of those things are covered in the PDF file. But then in your exhibits, you have an option of multi-page views, single page view. You can set it up so it will do multi-pages when you're presenting a document, so you can see one page up here, another page down here. You can establish different hotkeys for doing various things, clearing zones, and there's a smartboard option as well. So once you get that all set up the way you want, then you can come back in and go to exit to come out of the presentation mode and come back to your Explorer area. So now what I wanted to do is actually go through the segment editor. We had a PowerPoint on that. So I need to come down to the Transcript Manager. And I've already brought up a script that I've done, a little segment that I've done. And here is the beginning adjustment time. And I can play that. And see, that's where it starts. And then I would just kind of like, if this was way over here, you can see there's a gap of silence. I'd move it over here. And that is a better starting performance, I think, of that segment. And then I'd pick save. And then over here on this one, I test this out. And I can see the adjustment time maybe needs to be over this way more. Or maybe it's missing some of the testimony, and I have to move it over, move it over the other way, like so. and play it. So there was an objection there, and that's what that's all about. So what we would undo is not include that in the, and then make a clip that concatenates the answer to the question after the objection. But let's go back into making a clip. I'm going to come back over to the transcript itself and go through that process. So I'm going to come down in here and take a look at, well, we could do a search here, and we could search for halidone, and it comes up with a couple hits for halidone, and then I could bring up that particular portion of the clip. There it is. And let's say that I wanted to then clip the question here, whoops, and come down to where that is and get another question and maybe that answer there. So this is what I want to include in my clip, let's say. So then I right button click on the highlighted area and pick what I want to do is create a new clip from the selected text. And after I do that, it brings up what is called the Transcript Explorer clip tree. And you can see here is the clip that I've chosen, the page and the line numbers and so on. So that is the clip that I have. Now, one other option that's interesting is I right button click on it, and you'll notice that you can also go down to create a new exhibit from the selected text. That's an option you've got. So you've got a bunch of other options. You can issue code it. Like if there was an issue here, I could bring up the issue code and say, well, this was regarding negligence. And notice it's color coded. And you can edit these colors and so on as well by picking manage. So you can change your colors. You can change what the colors mean. You can use hotkeys. I could have just pressed F3 to assign that particular code and apply it then to that particular part of the and then your transcript will be highlighted and it will be issue coded for you in that way. And you can see down here on the left, here are some other parts that were highlighted as negligence. So the issue code and annotations show up over here for you as well. Now let's say we wanted to export some of these clips into a PowerPoint slideshow. We change up here to clips. So the pull down, instead of all items, we change it to clips. And then let's say we wanted this item and maybe this item, and I'm holding down the control key to click disparate clips. They're not all contiguous. So I've got 3 of these, and now let's say that I wanted to export these clips. So if I come up under clips, we have an item down here, export clips. We pick that item, and then we say we want to export the selected clips, not all of them. We pick next, and then let's say we want to put them in just to a folder, so they'd be separate little video clips for us with the transcript synchronized. We can email them to a recipient, or we can put them into a PowerPoint presentation. We'll pick this option and pick next. And we can pick the kind of slide layout we want. And I'll pick this option here. Here's where you would pick where it's going to go. This clip is this PowerPoint is going to go on my desktop, and I'm going to call it clip 4. Clip 4. We could browse out and put it wherever we want to, and then pick next. And then you've got multiple clips. You usually want a little fade between the clips to show that they're not contiguous. If they are contiguous clips, then you wouldn't want that. In the transition time, you can set that here. And pick next. And then pick export. And then this will be your progress, calculating the time that's remaining. And it will export all of these clips into a series of slides in PowerPoint, so that if you wanted to instead of using Trial Director to present in a small case, you might want to just do this and have a number of pieces of the deposition in a PowerPoint slideshow with some of the information that you don't necessarily want to use Trial Director to present in a smaller case of some kind. So you can export your clips like this to PowerPoint, or if you just want to talk about them with maybe the deponent, if it's your client, and just don't want to show the whole transcript, just some of these PowerPoint clips, you can do that as well. So it takes a little while to do it, but once you get them exported, I'll bring that PowerPoint up here in just a moment and show it to you. And I wasn't sure how long this would take, how much time we'd have, so I've got one ready to go if this one takes too long, which it may do because we're like about 3 minutes left. So what I'm going to do, oh, there it goes. It's completed. So now I can go to my desktop, go over here to File Explorer, and bring up that PowerPoint off my desktop. Okay, let's pick View by Details here. And there it is, Clips 4. I'll double click on that PowerPoint. And now we'll play it. So go to Slideshow from current slide. And then I can go up and click on that clip. Okay.
Did you understand that you've been called as an adverse party for the deposition by Haldane? As an adverse witness for this deposition by Haldane?
I have no idea what is in your mind or Haldane's mind. I just know that you called me as a witness. Whether you think I'm adverse or not, I don't know. I'm not going to agree to anything. Quite the contrary. During the phone conversations that we had a couple weeks ago, I had a distinct impression that you were attempting to foster kind of a divide and conquer strategy. So I don't know that you thought I was adverse. I don't really know what you thought, to be honest with you. And if you want me to tell you what you thought about whether I'm adverse,
Okay, I think you get the main idea here as to how that works. When you look at a slide, you can see it looks garbled, and that's because there is an animation sequence that's been placed automatically by Trial Director into the slide so that the text shows up when the person is saying it on the slides.